I stood in my custom lace gown, my hands shaking so hard my bouquet actually rattled. I was staring at a single, empty front row seat, marked with a delicate gold tag, Mother of the Bride. She actually did it. She boycotted the happiest day of my life, all because I dared to find love before her golden child. If you grew up in the shadow of a perfect sibling, you already know the suffocating weight of my childhood. My name is Sarah, and for 26 years, my sole role in my family was to act as the plain, unassuming backdrop against which my older sister, Chloe, could shine. My mother, Margaret, made no secret of her favoritism. It wasn't just a subtle preference. It was a way of life, baked into our family dynamics so deeply that I didn't even realize how toxic it was until I was in my 20s. Chloe was 2 years older, a literal pageant winner, a straight-A student, and the captain of the varsity cheerleading squad. She had cascading blonde hair that my mother spent hours brushing, while I was handed a $10 comb and told my frizzy brown curls were manageable if I just tried harder. Everything in our house revolved around Chloe's timeline, Chloe's needs, and Chloe's image. When I got accepted into a prestigious state university with a partial scholarship, my mother barely glanced at the acceptance letter. Why? Because that same week, Chloe had landed a low-level internship at a fashion PR firm in New York. We spent my high school graduation dinner talking exclusively about Chloe's apartment hunt in Manhattan. I learned to make myself small. I learned to expect nothing, so I wouldn't be disappointed. But then, I met David. David was a high school math teacher with kind eyes, infinite patience, and a laugh that made me feel like I was the only person in the room. He didn't care that my sister was a minor Instagram influencer, or that my mother treated me like a distant acquaintance. David saw me. He loved my frizzy hair, my quiet ambition, and my quirky sense of humor. For the first time in my life, I was someone's first choice. After 3 years of dating, David proposed. It was perfectly us, a rainy Sunday morning in our cramped apartment, wearing sweatpants, over a burnt batch of pancakes. I cried so hard I couldn't even speak, vigorously nodding my head as he slipped a modest but beautiful sapphire ring onto my finger. I was naive enough to think my mother would be happy for me. I thought, finally, I have a milestone that is completely mine. We arranged a family dinner at a nice Italian restaurant downtown to break the news. My mother, Margaret, arrived perfectly coiffed, with Chloe trailing behind her in a designer dress, glued to her phone. Chloe was currently dating a wealthy investment banker named Richard. Richard was notoriously non-committal, often flaking on family events, which drove my mother absolutely insane because she was already mentally planning their country club wedding. When the appetizers arrived, David cleared his throat, took my hand under the table, and smiled. Margaret, Chloe, we have some amazing news. Sarah and I are engaged. I held up my hand, the sapphire catching the dim restaurant lighting. Silence descended on the table. It wasn't a shocked, happy silence. It was a cold, suffocating vacuum. My mother didn't look at my ring. She looked instantly to her right at Chloe. Chloe's face had drained of color. She stared at my hand as if I had just slapped her across the face. Her lower lip actually trembled before she abruptly pushed her chair back, the legs screeching against the tile floor. "Excuse me," she choked out, turning on her heel and practically sprinting to the bathroom. My mother finally looked at me, her eyes flashing with a familiar, terrifying anger. "Sarah, what on earth were you thinking?" I was stunned. "What do you mean? We're engaged. We're getting married." "You couldn't wait?" my mother hissed, leaning across the table, completely ignoring David. "You know Chloe has been waiting for Richard to propose for 2 years. You know how sensitive she is about her age right now, and you just had to flaunt this in her face?" David, usually the most mild-mannered man on the planet, stepped in. "Margaret, with all due respect, we are simply sharing our joy. This has nothing to do with Chloe." "It has everything to do with Chloe," my mother snapped, grabbing her purse. "In this family, we respect the natural order of things. The older sister marries first. It is humiliating for Chloe to be bypassed by her younger sister. I need to go check on her. You've ruined this dinner, Sarah. I hope you're happy." She walked away, leaving David and me sitting alone with a plate of untouched bruschetta. I looked down at my beautiful ring, tears blurring my vision. My moment, once again, had been hijacked by my sister's fragile ego. Over the next few weeks, I tried to convince myself that my mother's reaction was just a temporary shock. Surely, once she processed the news, she would want to be involved in her daughter's wedding. I was wrong. When I called her to ask if she wanted to go dress shopping with my future mother-in-law, Joanne, Margaret sighed loudly into the receiver. Sarah, I really can't right now. Chloe is having a major crisis with Richard. He canceled their weekend in Aspen. She needs me. Mom, it's just one Saturday afternoon. I really want you there when I pick my dress. I don't have the mental capacity for dresses right now, Sarah. Honestly, you are being incredibly selfish. Besides, I told you I don't approve of this rushed timeline. Why don't you and David do a long engagement? A 3 or 4 year engagement would give you time to save up. We already have money saved, I replied, my voice shaking. We're setting the date for June 14th next year. June? No, absolutely not, she snapped. That gives Richard less than a year to propose and plan a wedding for Chloe to beat you to the altar. You are doing this just to spite her. I hung up the phone and sobbed on our bathroom floor. David held me, stroking my hair, and whispered, We don't need her. We have each other. My family loves you. And they did. Joanne and David's sister, Emily, became my surrogate family. They went dress shopping with me. They helped me pick out floral arrangements, and they cried with joy when I found the dress. Throughout the 10 months of planning, Margaret and Chloe acted as though my wedding didn't exist. If I brought it up, the subject was immediately changed. Margaret also made it abundantly clear that she would not be contributing a single dime to the wedding. My wedding fund is for Chloe, she stated matter-of-factly during one awful Thanksgiving dinner. Her circle expects a certain caliber of event. You and David are perfectly fine with something modest. I didn't care about the money. I cared about the complete lack of maternal love. But the breaking point came exactly 3 weeks before the wedding. I was addressing the final invitations when there was a sharp knock on my apartment door. I opened it to find Margaret standing there, her arms crossed, her expression hardened into ice. She didn't even say hello. Richard broke up with Chloe, she announced, stepping into my living room without an invitation. My heart did a complicated stutter. Part of me felt awful, for my sister breakups are horrible. But a darker, more exhausted part of me immediately knew how this was going to be weaponized against me. I'm sorry to hear that, Mom. Is she okay? No, she is not okay, Margaret yelled, dropping her purse on the sofa. She is devastated. She is 28 years old, single, and completely broken. And do you know what is making it worse? The fact that her younger, plain sister is about to have a wedding and rub it in her face. I stepped back, as if she had physically struck me. Mom, I am not rubbing anything in anyone's face. I am just getting married. Margaret stepped closer, her eyes blazing. You need to postpone the wedding. The room spun. What? Mom, the wedding is in 3 weeks. The vendors are paid. The venue is booked. David's family is flying in from out of state. I am not canceling my wedding because Chloe's boyfriend dumped her. I am not asking you to cancel it. Just postpone it. Wait a year. Give Chloe time to heal. It is cruel and unusual for you to parade around in a white dress while your sister's life is falling apart. If you love this family at all, you will make this sacrifice for her. No, I said. It was a complete sentence. Firm. Final. Margaret looked at me as if she didn't recognize me. She was so used to me folding, to me retreating to the shadows. If you do not postpone this wedding, she said, her voice dropping to a deadly whisper, I will not be there. Chloe will not be there. Your Aunt Clara and Uncle Tom will not be there, because I will tell them exactly what a spiteful, vicious sister you are being. If you walk down that aisle on June 14th, you do it without your family. Then I'll walk down it alone, I choked out, tears spilling down my cheeks. She stared at me for a long, terrible moment, then picked up her purse and walked out, slamming the door so hard the framed photos on the wall rattled. The next 3 weeks were a living nightmare. Margaret made good on her threat. She called every extended family member on our side and spun a web of lies. She told them I had intentionally planned my wedding to overlap with Chloe's emotional breakdown, that I was demanding money they didn't have, and that David had been disrespectful to her. One by one, the RSVPs on my side of the family changed from attending to regretfully decline. By the morning of my wedding day, my side of the guest list had dwindled from 40 people to exactly 3. My best friend from college, her husband, and a former coworker. I sat in the bridal suite of the beautiful botanical garden venue we had booked, letting the makeup artist apply concealer over the dark circles under my eyes. Joanne, David's mother, was bustling around, pouring mimosas and making sure I ate. She was trying so hard to fill the gaping void in the room, but the silence from my own mother was deafening. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart leapt, hoping it was Margaret saying she was downstairs, saying she was sorry. It never was. When the string quartet began playing my cue, I stood at the back of the garden aisle. David's father, a wonderful man named Arthur, had offered to walk me down the aisle. I gripped his arm like a lifeline. "You look breathtaking, Sarah," Arthur whispered warmly. "David is a lucky man." "Thank you, Arthur," I managed to whisper back. We began the long walk down the petal-strewn path. The sun was shining, the flowers were blooming, and David was standing at the altar looking incredibly handsome, wiping away a stray tear as he saw me. It should have been a picture-perfect moment, but as I walked, my eyes betrayed me. They drifted to the front row on the left side of the aisle. It was completely, utterly empty. Right in the center of that row was a chair with a beautiful gold placard that read, "Mother of the Bride." Next to it, maid of honor, the spot I had reserved for Chloe, desperately hoping she would come around. They were vacant, gaping wounds in the middle of my beautiful ceremony. My mother had actually done it. She had thrown away her relationship with her youngest daughter to comfort her golden child over a breakup. I barely remember the vows. I was on autopilot, swallowing back the heavy, agonizing lump of grief in my throat. I smiled for the photos. I kissed my new husband, but a piece of my soul felt like it had been carved out. As we transitioned to the reception hall, the reality of my isolated existence truly set in. The seating chart was heavily lopsided. David's family was loud, joyous, and celebratory, while my side consisted of one lonely table in the corner. During the cocktail hour, while David was getting us drinks, my phone buzzed in my clutch. I pulled it out. It was a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Thought you should know why they're really not there. Ask Chloe about the police report. Happy wedding day, Richard." My blood ran cold. The police report? What was Richard talking about? Before I could even process the cryptic message, my Aunt Clara, one of the family members Margaret had successfully turned against me, unexpectedly walked through the reception hall doors. She looked frantic, disheveled, and completely out of breath. She scanned the room, locked eyes with me, and marched straight over, completely ignoring the fact that I was in a wedding gown. "Sarah," Aunt Clara gasped, grabbing my arm so hard her nails dug into my skin. "Where is David? We need to talk, right now." The twist was coming, and the carefully constructed, perfect image of my sister was about to shatter into a million pieces. "Aunt Clara, what are you doing here?" I asked, completely bewildered. "Mom told me you refused to come." Clara, breathless and trembling, clutched a thick, folded stack of papers in her manicured hands. She pulled me aggressively toward the hallway, away from the prying eyes of the cocktail hour. David noticed the commotion and quickly jogged over, placing a protective arm around my waist. "Clara, what is going on?" David demanded, his voice steady but laced with a clear warning. "If you are here to cause a scene or defend Margaret, you need to leave right now." No, David, you don't understand," Clara stammered, her chest heaving as she tried to catch her breath. "I came to apologize, to both of you. Margaret lied to us. She lied to everyone. She spun this massive, heartbreaking story about how Sarah was torturing Chloe, but it was all a smokescreen, a distraction. I felt the blood drain from my face. A distraction from what? Clara practically shoved the stack of papers into my hands. "From this. Richard sent this to me and Uncle Tom an hour ago. He sent it to the entire extended family in a mass email. He said he was tired of Margaret slandering his name to cover up what her precious golden child actually did." I unfolded the papers. At the top left corner, in stark, unforgiving black ink, was the seal of the Chicago Police Department. It was a formal incident report, followed by copies of an arrest warrant and a bail receipt. My eyes scanned the harsh, bureaucratic text, completely unable to process the horrifying reality of the words. Incident report. Subject: Chloe Margaret Jenkins. Charges: felony breaking and entering, aggravated assault, felony vandalism, destruction of property exceeding $50,000. Narrative: Subject forcibly entered the residence of the victim, Richard Harrison, after being denied entry. Subject proceeded to systematically destroy electronics and artwork using a steel golf club. When the victim attempted to intervene, subject threw a heavy glass vase, causing lacerations to the victim's forehead. Subject was restrained by building security until law enforcement arrived. I stopped reading and looked up, the venue spinning around me. Chloe. Chloe got arrested? She assaulted Richard? It gets worse, Sarah, Clara whispered, tears welling in her eyes. Look at the date on the arraignment notice. I flipped to the second page. The municipal court arraignment hearing was scheduled for today, June 14th, at 10 a.m. The exact time I was getting my hair and makeup done. The exact time my mother was supposedly boycotting my wedding out of moral protest. She didn't skip your wedding because she disapproved of your timeline, Sarah, Clara said, her voice cracking with profound guilt. She skipped it because she was sitting in a downtown courthouse, watching her oldest daughter get indicted on felony charges. She drained her entire savings, the money she claimed was her wedding fund, for Chloe to post a $100,000 bail bond and hire Bradley Jenkins, one of the most expensive defense attorneys in the city. David tightened his grip on me, reading over my shoulder. My God, he murmured. She used Sarah as a scapegoat. She manufactured a fake family feud so she wouldn't have to admit her perfect daughter is a violent criminal. It all made a sick, twisted kind of sense. The sudden, intense anger, the manufactured outrage over my wedding date, the desperation to isolate me from the family. If the family was angry at me, they wouldn't be asking questions about Chloe. They wouldn't wonder why Chloe suddenly went off the grid or why Margaret was frantically liquidating assets. I was the perfect, convenient distraction. I am so sorry, Sarah, Clara sobbed, burying her face in her hands. We all believed her. She was crying on the phone, telling us how cruel you were being. We didn't think a mother could lie about something so vile. But Richard attached photos of his apartment. It's destroyed. He had to get a restraining order against Chloe. A strange, unnatural calm washed over me. For 26 years, I had accepted the narrative that I was the flawed, difficult daughter. I had internalized every sigh, every eye roll, and every unfair comparison. I had let my mother dictate my worth. But standing there in my wedding dress, holding a police report that proved the golden child was a complete illusion, the invisible chains just snapped. Don't apologize, Aunt Clara, I said, folding the papers carefully and handing them to David. Go enjoy the cocktail hour. Grab a drink. The reception is about to begin. Sarah, what are you going to do? David asked softly, knowing that tone in my voice. I'm going to enjoy my wedding, I replied, adjusting my veil. And when the time is right, I am going to set the record straight. The reception was beautiful. Despite the heavy revelation, being surrounded by David's warm, boisterous family lifted my spirits. We danced, we ate incredible food, and we cut a beautiful three-tiered cake. For a few hours, I was able to box up the betrayal and just be a bride in love with her new husband. But a narcissist's desperation knows no boundaries. It was around 9:30 p.m. The DJ was playing an upbeat song, and most of the guests were on the dance floor. I was sitting at the sweetheart table with David, resting my aching feet, when the heavy oak doors of the reception hall violently swung open. The music didn't stop, but a wave of silence rippled through the crowd nearest the entrance. There stood Margaret. She looked entirely unhinged. Her usually perfect hair was disheveled, her mascara was slightly smeared, and she was wearing a wrinkled trench coat over a plain blouse. She didn't look like a mother arriving to apologize. She looked like a cornered animal. Behind her, looking incredibly small, and wearing a baseball cap pulled low over her face, was Chloe. My heart pounded against my ribs as Margaret marched straight past the stunned guests, weaving through the tables, making a beeline directly for the gift table. Hey, excuse me. David's father, Arthur, stepped in front of her. Margaret, what do you think you're doing? Get out of my way, Arthur, my mother spat, practically shoving past him. She reached the gift table and aggressively grabbed the wooden, locked box where guests had dropped their monetary gifts and cards. She tugged at the padlock, her face red with exertion. I stood up, pushing my chair back so hard it tipped over with a loud crash. Mom! What are you doing? Margaret whipped around, clutching the box to her chest. I need this, Sarah. The lawyer is demanding a larger retainer by midnight. Or he's dropping Chloe's case. You have thousands of dollars in here from his wealthy family. You don't need it. Chloe is going to prison if I don't pay him. A collective gasp echoed through the room. The DJ, finally realizing something was terribly wrong, slowly faded the music out. She had the absolute audacity to hijack my wedding day, boycott my ceremony, slander my name to our entire family, and then crash my reception to steal my wedding gifts to pay for her violent daughter's legal defense. Put the box down, Margaret, David commanded, stepping in front of me, his fists clenched at his sides. It's family money, Margaret shrieked, completely losing her composure in front of 75 guests. Sarah owes us. Look at her, parading around in this expensive dress while her sister is suffering. You did this to her, Sarah. Your selfish little engagement pushed her over the edge. If you had just waited your turn, Chloe wouldn't have snapped. I looked at Chloe, who was cowering near the doorway, refusing to make eye contact with anyone. Then I looked at my mother, screaming like a banshee, blaming me for her golden child's felonies. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I walked over to the DJ booth, picked up the wireless microphone and switched it on. A sharp burst of feedback pierced the room, silencing my mother instantly. Margaret, I said, my voice amplified and echoing off the high ceilings. I refused to call her mom. Put the box down. Now. Or I will have David's father call the police, and Chloe can spend her first night post-arraignment violating her bail conditions. Margaret froze, her eyes widening in pure shock. How do you know about that? I know everything, I said into the microphone, my voice remarkably steady. I looked out at the sea of faces, David's shocked relatives, my few loyal friends, and Aunt Clara, who was nodding encouragingly from a corner table. I know that you didn't skip my wedding because I disrespected the family timeline. I know you skipped it because you were at the municipal courthouse. Sarah, shut your mouth, Margaret hissed, taking a step toward me. I know, I continued, projecting my voice louder, that Chloe didn't just go through a bad breakup. I know she broke into Richard's penthouse, took a golf club to his belongings, and assaulted him. I know she is facing 3 felony charges, and you blew your life savings bailing her out. Chloe let out a muffled sob and ran out the reception hall doors. You lied to our family, I stated, staring directly into Margaret's horrified eyes. You told them I was a monster so they would abandon me today. You used my wedding as a smokescreen to hide your perfect daughter's crimes. And now, you have the absolute gall to walk in here and try to steal my wedding gifts to fund her criminal defense. The silence in the room was absolute. You could have heard a pin drop. Margaret's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. The pristine, flawless image she had curated for decades had just been incinerated in front of a live audience. Her hands trembled, and she slowly lowered the wooden gift box back onto the table. You are no daughter of mine, she whispered venomously. Finally, I replied into the microphone. Something we agree on. Get out of my wedding, and never, ever contact me again. She didn't say another word. Stripped of her power, her secrets exposed, Margaret turned around and walked out of the hall, shrinking under the disgusted glares of every single person in the room. When the doors clicked shut behind her, David walked over, took the microphone gently from my hand, and pulled me into a fierce, grounding embrace. The room erupted into spontaneous applause. It wasn't a pity clap. It was a celebration of freedom. We cut ties completely that night. I blocked their numbers, blocked them on social media, and moved on with my life. Last I heard, through Aunt Clara, Chloe took a plea deal that resulted in heavy probation, massive restitution fines, and mandatory anger management. Margaret had to sell her house to cover the legal fees and the damages to Richard's property. They live in a cramped apartment now, trapped in their own toxic echo chamber. As for me, I am happily married to a man who puts me first. I no longer live in the shadows. I built a beautiful, peaceful life, completely free of the heavy, suffocating weight of being the invisible daughter. I finally learned that you don't have to set yourself on fire just to keep your toxic family warm. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you've ever dealt with a toxic family dynamic, narcissistic parents, or a golden child sibling, let me know in the comments below how you handled it. Don't forget to hit that like button, share this video with anyone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to the channel for more crazy real-life drama and storytelling. Your support means the world to me and helps the channel grow. See you soon.